box office is not ringing a bell like the last two, which each came in and finished up around $800 million. We're still looking at a $180 million opening weekend.
The budget's out of control. For this kind of a movie and for the potentiality that it has, you just cannot get to a point where you need hundreds of millions of dollars to make a profit or break even. That's crazy. So this thing's going to need to make way, way more than it's currently at.
Welcome back, Renegade Nation. As you can tell, I'm not in the usual studio space today. Still traveling on the road. For those of you who have been watching, took a little weekend trip out to Kings Island and a few other local theme parks. So we'll be returning back home Monday, tomorrow afternoon. But we've got a great guest panel here, including WDW Pro from that park place, some of the TPP and Pro crew out there. Maybe some other guests will be stopping by. I will be bouncing in and out of the show because I'll still be jumping on and off of roller coasters. So having a good time here with some friends, and I'm sure you'll maybe see some of these pictures and photos and videos later on. Quite a few topics to discuss, none the least of which is the box office with Venom 3 opening, which is actually kind of fun because I did get to go see this with Renegade Jr. Thursday night before I jumped on a plane to head up to Kentucky and Indiana and Ohio. I actually kind of enjoyed it. It wasn't the best of the three, but it was still entertaining nonetheless. But the box office is not ringing a bell like the last two, which each came in and finished up around $800 million. So we've got to talk about some of that box office today. Now, as I'm recording this, we don't have a lot of the final weekend estimates yet for the box office in totality. It's still a little early in the day for that as I record this before I leave to go to Kings Island in Cincinnati. But that being said, by the time we get to the show, we will have that information, and I'm sure Pro is about to go through that, and hopefully I'm in the background watching this and about to jump on as well to discuss it. But as of right now, if we look at things like, let's go over here to right here, Venom: The Last Dance, and we can kind of see what we're talking about here with roughly 72 million through Friday, but there is more to the story here. Venom: The Last Dance missteps stateside with $52 million opening, still preys on overseas to keep Tom Hardy movie in the black. And that's true. Now, the good thing is for Venom 3 is that, like the first two iterations of this film, that Sony does keep a very, very tight bit of control on the production budgets. The first film came in at roughly $85 million. The second film, if I recall, came in only slightly higher, around $90 to $95 million. This one has a production budget of $110 million. And again, you compare that to our friends at places like the Walt Disney Company, that's much, much better. And this movie probably needs to rake in somewhere between $400 and $500 million, considering this issue. And that is the heavy, heavy lean towards the international box office. We're still looking at a $180 million opening weekend. And actually, a lot of that does have to do with the fact that, quite frankly, China is playing a big role in that international side. Roughly half of it, according to some of these early estimates. So this is going to be something to watch, but I'm sure we're going to get into more discussion right now.
And Valiant's exactly right, folks. Here we have out of Discussing Film, Tom Hardy on saying goodbye to Venom. It's been 7 years doing this. It's like I started the day 7 years ago, and now it's nighttime. It's time to go to sleep. I've absolutely loved playing Eddie and Venom. The problem, again, though, is that this movie is so internationally loaded that when you have a film that is this drastically international instead of domestic, you have to pull higher numbers because the percentage of money that goes to the governments and taxes and all of that, far higher. So here's what we have out of the numbers coming out today. It says weekend projections, Venom debuts with disappointing $51 million weekend. On Friday, our prediction model said Venom: The Last Dance would earn $54 million this weekend. I thought, that's the author, not myself, the model was overly pessimistic and that the superhero movie will land somewhere in the 60s. Well, I, the author, was wrong, and the model was right. With just $51 million projected this morning by Sony Pictures, this is another miss for the superhero genre. Here's how the weekend numbers look as of Sunday morning. Now, folks, you know we cannot have the numbers yet until tomorrow and Tuesday when we'll get the finalized numbers for the weekend. But this is the best we've got right now. And you can see that the percentage of predicted box office is only sitting at 90%. So not fantastic there. That's the overall box office. Why is that happening? Well, take a look here. We've got Venom: The Last Dance in at 51 million. Smile 2 comes in at 9.4 million. Then we've got The Wild Robot at 6.5. Conclave at 6.5. What are we seeing here, folks? Take a look at the column that says projected and take a look at the column that says predicted, right? And what do we find? See all that red on the far right side? It turns out that people are not going to the box office in the numbers that theater owners were hoping for. One of the biggest disappointments here, of course, Beetlejuice, because we're coming up into the holiday week. And Beetlejuice, which is already, by the way, $200 million in the profit, they were hoping to see, Warner Brothers at least, was hoping to see a big lift on that. But perhaps nobody is as disappointed as Sony with Venom: The Last Dance. And if you ever wonder, do professional sites make a mistake? Venom: The Last Dance. That, I think, might be a misspelled exotic movie, gentlemen, that you would never rent at a Blockbuster. Please don't go and say, oh, I'd like to have Venom's The Last Dance, please. Don't do that. Derek, Lauren, what are you guys thinking about Venom? Has it been something that's even been on your radar? Is this a shock, a surprise at all to you guys that Venom is coming under what they were hoping for?
Not a shock at all. I expected it to kind of underperform what the expectations were, the predictions were. And it's just because, after the first film, which was, I guess, passable, the second film was terrible. They destroyed the character of Carnage. And we're at the point now where the comic book fan going audience, people that would go and watch a comic book movie, they're just kind of turned off from everything that's out there, with the exception of a Deadpool and Wolverine. But you see all of the content that's being produced in the comic book genre from DC and from Marvel over the last couple of years has been less than satisfactory. And so people aren't just, like, okay, if it doesn't have great word of mouth or I'm expecting great things, I'm not watching it. I'm not going to waste my money. I'm not going to waste my time. We have streaming. We have all kinds of other things that we can watch and do. So that's where I'm going to put my time and attention. And I knew that Venom wasn't going to do very well because the trailers didn't really captivate me. I didn't really think that I saw it and it was as bad as I thought it was going to be, but the trailers didn't really get me. And then the overall feeling of the Venom franchise, if you could call it that, it just hasn't been good. The first film was passable, if that. The second film was dreadful. This film is slightly, in my opinion, slightly better than the second film, but not by much. And I feel like a lot of comic book fans felt that. So yeah, I didn't expect anything to come out of this, and it's getting exactly what we expect.
Yeah, and there's a reason they're bringing it to an end. And it's never been a franchise. I guess it's a sub-franchise. It's never been something to me that seemed like it was really going to go anywhere. I think Sony is doing about as well as you could hope for it. The problem is, as Valiant was identifying, the budget's out of control. For this kind of a movie and for the potentiality that it has, you just cannot get to a point where you need hundreds of millions of dollars to make a profit or break even. That's crazy. So this thing's going to need to make way, way more than it's currently at. It's a disappointment for sure. But the rest of the box office also just as weak. And it's very strange given that we're going into the Halloween week. So with this weekend and the next weekend, you would expect to see some of these scary films. And I think Venom is sort of on the scary side of superhero stuff. You would expect to see bounces out of them. And for whatever reason, you're really not getting that. Smile 2, Conclave, Terrifier 3, none of those really taking off. And of course, there is the absolute flop of all flops, taking on the Marvels, taking on Indy, taking on Flash, Joker. Folks, this needs to be something that gets a little bit of discussion. Joker is already out of the top 10 at a time when the top 10 is crazy weak. Look at this, folks. Joker is predicted for the weekend to have not grossed $1 million. For a weekend preceding Halloween, the character is the Joker. He is literally the iconoclast of villains. He is psychotic clown and anarchy combined. And Well, $600,000 is what they anticipate for the weekend. So, you know what, Sony? When you feel badly about yourselves, when Venom has you down, look at Joker and you'll feel just slightly better. Lauren, your thought on the box office this week?
On the box office as a whole, I'm not terribly surprised. I think that there's just not been a lot of good stuff coming out, and I think the general public's distrust of what's being put out, combined with what household budgets are dealing with versus what they can get for entertainment for their dollar in other venues, is just leading to basically a box office collapse across the board. Um, when you're talking about Venom as a picture itself, I'm kind of the outlier because I've never been a Venom fan, so I'm the wrong guy to ask for what I would have expected for this picture because I wouldn't have been interested in it.
Every time you go see a Venom movie, you just want the antidote for the symbiote. Is that right?
Yeah, it was a character that never really worked for me, so I'm the wrong guy to ask about whether
Neither
this
for
would
Peter
be.
Parker, by the way.
Pardon?
Neither for Peter Parker. Didn't work for him either.
Yeah, yeah.
Bad
Uh,
trip.
but I do think that the box office as a whole is suffering just because people they're spending their money elsewhere. They can make their dollar go further elsewhere. If you're having to spend, for instance, I have a son. He's who I go to the movies with. It costs $30 for 2 tickets on a non matinee showing, and then you're probably going to spend $30 on concessions. That's money that can go a long way elsewhere for 2 hours of entertainment and bad food. So I think people are just finding other ways to stretch their entertainment dollar, especially when if they wait just 3 or 4 weeks, it's going to be on streaming.
And very hard
Yeah,
to
like
blame
to your
people.
point,
Yeah.
Lauren. I think Joker 2 comes out this week on streaming. I believe it drops on VOD in a couple of days. So why would you want? Oh, I
Yeah,
can wait
right.
2
Sale
days.
in multiple formats. Yay!
Yeah. I could just wait a couple of days and then I'll watch Joker 2 for $19.99 or whatever they're going to charge in the comfort of my own home. I don't have to leave the house. I don't have to go out and buy expensive concessions. I can eat whatever I have around the house. Hollywood has been cooking its own goose by doing this for a long time. I think. And forget the fact that it's a bad movie. There might still be some interest to go and watch this movie if it was in theaters and there wasn't a VOD release date in a couple of days. But now that you have a VOD release date, people know it. Okay, there's no reason for me to go to the theaters and watch this film. I'm going to wait for it to come out on VOD. I'll rent it there. I'll see whatever it is. And I haven't wasted 60, like Lauren just said, $60, $70 or whatever it is that I'm going to spend in the theater, for a couple of people. I can bring a whole family over to watch it for $19.99 and we can order pizza and, there it is. So, yeah, I think, the reason the box office is down is part and parcel due to the way that Hollywood does its business. And it seems like Netflix and every, other streaming service is starting to take over and starting to get more of our consumer dollar. It's not going to the theaters anymore like it used to.
Absolutely. And I'll say this, there's two things that we need to note before we move on from this topic. One is, my oh my, 2024 has got to be one of the worst years for Batman fans. Flat out. I mean, you've had to suffer through the Joker Part 2, but you've also had to suffer through Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. This has been just an unfun time for DC fans out there, and hopefully James Gunn can start to turn the page, because this is a page worth turning, let me tell you.
At least we have the Penguin, bro. We do have the Penguin.
That's a great point, Derek. I take that back. I got to factor that in. You're exactly right. The Penguin is making up some ground.
Yeah.
Derek, were you expecting that, by the way? Was anybody expecting this show to be that good?
I don't think so. I don't think anybody saw this coming. I personally was just expecting a decent show. I would watch it because I'm a DC fan and I would enjoy it for what it was. I was expecting something along the lines of Gotham. I mean, what we have gotten in the, the meme, is absolute cinema. Like, we have gotten amazing, amazing content from the Penguin, from the acting to the directing. The story is just absolutely phenomenal. And then you're talking about what, in my opinion, is one of the best performances of the year, with Kristen Milioti playing Sophia Falcone. Holy smokes, this lady is absolutely amazing. In my opinion, she's already gotten it. She should have an Emmy Award wrapped up just for the 4th episode of Penguin alone. I can't stop raving about that. Like, everybody talks about how much we, tear apart things we don't like, but I've been trying as much as I can to praise Penguin because it is so well done. Colin Farrell as well. He absolutely disappears into that costume that he's wearing. You forget that you're looking at Colin Farrell. You're looking at the Penguin. You know, you just see the character of the Penguin, and you don't really see Colin Farrell. And that is a hallmark of great television, great writing, great acting. You know, they put this thing together. It seems like they took their time. They made sure that they got it right. So yeah, I'm very impressed with what we've been getting out of the Penguin. In my opinion, it's right there with Daredevil in terms of one of the best comic book adaptations on television that we've ever seen. I can't wait to get more.
And you know what, Derek? It's so important because it's also an example that we can go to as a community and say, we're not negative for the sake of negativity.
Right.
It's an exemplar. It's something we can point to and say, this is what we want. This is what we keep asking for. Here's the reward for it. Please give us more of this. And hopefully they'll listen. The second thing I want to say about the box office before we leave this topic, and next up is going to be Joe Rogan and Orange Man, not so bad when it comes to ratings. I do want to say this very quickly, folks, and that is that there's a caveat to how the box office is missing projections for this week and this weekend. And that is that many of the movies on here have such small budgets that even missing the mark does not mean that they're going to miss their mark in terms of profitability. So when you look at Smile 2, Conclave, Terrifier 3, even Beetlejuice, these films have done an excellent job of keeping their budgets in a place where they're going to make a profit. Beetlejuice, for example, probably going to make something like $200 to $225 million in profit. The big losers, though, are the films that are spending big, like Venom and Joker. They're spending big and they're losing big. No fun at all.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.